ecosystem also talks to the ecosystem in the bladder, in the ecosystem on the skin, in the ecosystem in the ear canal, and throughout the body. It is in communication with all those things. So if you're off balance someplace like the gut, ultimately you are probably going to end up off balance in other places. As an infant, we all are born with a leaky gut. We want to have a leaky gut because we get passive immunity from breast milk from mom. So if mom had the measles or had an immunization to measles and has antibodies to measles, that goes in via breast milk, right? And then it leaks out into the tissue for the baby so that the baby has these circulating antibodies, and that's called passive immunity. So let's say that you have an allergy, and let's just pick dairy, because that's a common one that people don't necessarily digest well. But let's say that that gets in because they're substituting cow milk for mom's milk, and your immune system hasn't developed yet to a place where you can really manage that on your own. And then that gets into the tissue, and it creates some inflammation because it's a weird molecule, it's a big molecule, and then your immune system is like, hey, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. And then it'll flag it. And it may take a while to develop an immune reaction to it because babies don't have spectacular immune systems. They take time to develop. But this, once in a while, if it leaks in, maybe no big deal. But if it's a frequent thing and it's a very permeable membrane here at the level of the gut, then things get in here and the tissue starts to react to it. The immune system starts to react to it. It's primed to react to these as invaders instead of something benevolent. Now, as that baby gets older, you start to develop tight junctions. So these cells in the gut lining start to bind together. So that means that the gut is no longer leaky. Things can't pass through it. So you have this whole tube running through your body that is technically the outside world because it's very selective about what it'll let into your inner world. In the colon, you start to develop gut bugs called your microbiome or your flora. This process of these good gut bugs starts with birth. So during delivery, the baby gets some of these from mom, and then if the baby's breastfeeding, the baby gets some of these from the skin while nursing. Then babies, as you know, pick up everything, stick it in their mouth, they eat dirt, all that stuff has microbes in it, many of which are beneficial to the human body. So if that's going well, then these provide some additional immune resistance there. If they're nice and healthy and these barriers stay intact, then everything is good. Unfortunately, this can all break down for several reasons. You get food poisoning and you get some bad bugs, and those bad bugs come in and they start to like wipe out and crowd out the good bugs and they take over. That creates some inflammation, and then they break down this lining here, and then more food leaks in and that triggers the immune system to have a response. So the microbiome here in the gut, we don't think about it very much, but we have this whole ecosystem here, and keeping that in balance is really important. The gut ecosystem also talks to the ecosystem in the bladder, in the ecosystem on the skin, in the ecosystem in the ear canal, and throughout the body. It is in communication with all those things. So if you're off balance someplace like the gut, ultimately you are probably going to end up off balance in other places. All right, so we talked about how digestion should work. We talked a little bit about some of the things that can go wrong there, but the microbiome is so important. If you have an altered microbiome for whatever reason, that can really be problematic. And if someone is genetically predisposed to have an autoimmune disease, we know that the microbiome is altered in people who have all sorts of autoimmune diseases, whether that be ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, or other autoimmune diseases. That can be a problem. And in fact, there are some autoimmune diseases that start with a gut infection. So there's a kind of reactive arthritis that starts with a GI infection and then becomes systemic inflammation that leads to autoimmune joint disease in susceptible people. So you want to really do everything that you can to guard your digestion as much as possible. So that is your motivation for this Monday. You want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you're staying in optimal function. If you're not optimally digesting, you want to get back on track with that. And the body does want homeostasis. So one of the best ways to do that really is by changing your diet and cutting out things that may be irritating and start working from there.